definition of biological male and the definition of biological female is different now, I think, than the definition of male.
I mean,
and
if
women.
you're talking strictly about like
A man and a woman.
what these words are actually physically defined as in the dictionary, it hasn't changed. So Oxford still defines a woman as an adult human female, and female as a person that falls into the sexual category capable of bearing children and producing ova.
I guess I'll sort of lump the first two together and then kind of talk about that. The men can't be women and kids can't be trans. I think to start, it's important to acknowledge that language is fluid and that the meanings of words change.
Yes.
Throughout history, that's happened, you know what I mean, over and over. That's pretty easy to agree to, right?
Yep.
And I think in the last probably 15 to 20 years, one of the shifts that has occurred is the definitions of gender, where for a long time the definition of gender was something that was intrinsically linked to biological sex, and in the last 15 to 20 years that has shifted. And so when we say that something, or when we say that someone is a man or someone is a woman, we're referring to gender, and we are no longer referring to biological sex, which would be male or female assigned at birth.
And do you think colloquially that's what the majority of people mean? Do you think that the majority of people in the country, when they see a transgender woman, look at that person and view them no differently than that woman right there?
I don't know. I don't have the information to know that 51% of the people that say men are referring to biological sex or gender.
I would find it hard to believe that 20% of the population would believe that a transgender woman is the same as that woman right there.
So use that in a sentence. There's a man over there.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so there's a man over there. We're talking about a person.
Transgender woman?
I would say that majority of the time, if someone were to use the sentence, there is a man over there, they're referring to someone that is masculine presenting.
No, I think that
and
they're
whether
referring
or
to
not,
a man, somebody with a penis.
How would they know?
Okay.
I mean, there's a couple ways that they would know, but I don't think we need to get into those exactly. But I don't think that they would know.
You can almost always tell. There are very few situations where you actually can't tell.
I don't know if we have the information to.
I trust you. I've dealt with them. I've seen them. I have the information.
So that's like your experiences?
Yes,
or?
I can tell immediately.
Okay, so according to your experiences, most of the time you can tell the difference.
Can I get a hand raise? When you see a transgender person, can you tell? Okay.
My eyes burn.
It's pretty much everyone can tell.
But that's that statement in itself has an important flaw, because you wouldn't know the times that you wouldn't be able to tell.
There are a few exceptions. There are people who are so-called
you wouldn't
passing,
know.
And it's like, okay, if I saw them on the street, I might not be able to tell, but that doesn't change the truth about the matter.
Yeah, but you wouldn't know that you couldn't tell.
But if I were to know more information, then I would say, that's a man, that's not a woman. And also, we have many instances in nature, like we have the monarch butterfly. There's another butterfly that looks much like it. Birds don't really like the monarch butterfly because it tastes nasty. You also have lots of instances of like poisonous snakes and poisonous bugs. And then you have a butterfly that looks like the monarch butterfly. It doesn't taste nasty, but it appears to be that way to fool the birds. If you saw it, you might think that's a monarch butterfly, but if you make that statement, you are wrong. It's not to say there's something evil about you saying that, you were mistaken, but you are incorrect. So I get what you're saying, but I don't think that really changes anything about.
So to say that the butterfly that isn't a monarch butterfly is a monarch butterfly is incorrect.
Right. You're being fooled by the butterfly.
Because biologically there's a difference between, and that brings me we circle back, right, to the definition of biological male and the definition of biological female is different now, I think, than the definition of male.
I mean,
and
if
women.
you're talking strictly about like
a man and a woman,
what these words are actually physically defined as in the dictionary, it hasn't changed. So Oxford still defines a woman as an adult human female, and female as a person that falls into the sexual category capable of bearing children and producing ova.
Is that what it says in the Oxford Dictionary?
Yeah. Do you want me to I can pull it up for you if you want.
I believe you. That's okay.
That's what it says, yeah.
I also think that when people use words, it's not always exactly what the dictionary says. And I think that
But you were talking about what the definitions are.
There's what are the words? Denotation and connotation.
Right.
Right.
But I think, but again, this goes back to the question I asked you: is when we look at the majority of people in this country, what do they mean when they use the word? And I think the majority of people probably mean exactly what it says in the dictionary. I think that a lot of people bend to the whims of transgender people and call them women or call them her when they're not hers or they're not women, just so they don't get canceled, because there's a lot of pressure on them, especially in places like this at universities, that cause them to do these things so they don't lose friends, they don't fail their classes for being bigots, they don't get kicked out of school, they don't get reported for being bullied or bullying, being bullies, etc. Right? There's a lot of pressure on them to do these things, but I bet you the majority of them don't actually think that a trans woman is the same as a normal woman, because they're not the same.
Okay, there's a couple things there. The first off, I think that, I mean, I don't know, because again, I don't have the exact information, but I doubt that the Oxford Dictionary is as current as what is colloquial.
They
I bet
update it
words
frequently.
change faster than the Oxford or the dictionary change. I don't know.
The online
Maybe.
Oxford updates constantly. Like, they're
So another
always changing
thing,
it.
what did I have? Another thing that I think, or one of the points now that becomes more important, is that, is it good or bad to acknowledge this sort of transition or change, assuming that the change is existing, right? I'm sorry. So the next one was that
it's artificial.
people that see or colloquially, are we referring to a man or a woman? And again, I think that there's a flaw in the logic that's saying that, well, I can tell when someone is trans. Well, you can't. You can only tell when someone is trans, and it's clear, because you don't know the times that you don't know, right? If someone is biological male
fine, but it boils
that
back
is
down to-
female presenting, but it is so
and we go right
good
back to,
of a transition
we go
that
right
you
back to
can't
Ben's
tell.
argument.
You don't know those times.
Yeah.
Definitionally, you can't know what you
But
don't
it
know.
doesn't matter, because our argument isn't that women are people who look like women. Our argument is that women are adult human females, and as Ben said before, there are butterflies that look like monarch butterflies that aren't, and if you mistake that butterfly that isn't a monarch butterfly for a monarch butterfly, you've been fooled, and you're incorrectly assessing that this is a monarch butterfly. The assertion that it is one is false.
Okay.
Right? So we could get on an even playing field here, and if you present me a definition of a woman, what you think a woman is, I'm willing to operate off of that definition, but what is it?
Okay, that's what I think is the real crux of this conversation and where this becomes important. If the monarch, you said the monarch butterfly tastes bad, okay, yeah, and so if a bird makes a mistake and eats that monarch butterfly and it tastes really nasty, there has been a harm to that bird because it ate a butterfly that was gross.
Yeah.
I guess. The issue then becomes is this transition in language, is this change in definitions, is it good or bad? And
yes,
is there
definitely
a
harmful.
harm?
In the same way.
Is there
Yeah.
a harm to calling someone what they prefer to be called?
Yeah.
And I don't think that there is.
Yeah, there is, and I'll tell you exactly. Actually, this is almost perfectly analogous to the monarch butterfly. If somebody is looking outwardly just like a woman, and I mistake them for a woman, and let's say I decide to go sleep with them, and they pull out a penis, I am going to be mortified. I'm probably going to walk away with post-traumatic stress. It's going to be disgusting, right? I don't want that to happen to me. I don't want that to happen to anybody. So it certainly causes harm there. Furthermore, when you pretend that men are women when they are not, this puts them or gives them the opportunity to be put in women's spaces. I personally have friends who swam on the UPenn, thank you so much. I personally have friends who swam on the UPenn women's swim team and had to change in a locker room with Leah William Thomas, who had a penis and had previously dated a member of that swim team. You know, like, incredibly uncomfortable for those girls, right? And in women's bathing suits, especially like competitive racing suits, when they're wet, they take a long time to change out of because they're wet and they're like suction cupped to your body. So not only is William Thomas now exposed completely and his male genitalia to these women, they're also exposed to him, this big, brawny, broad-shouldered man who is indistinguishable from a man with long hair. I mean, he doesn't look like a woman. He's got an Adam's apple, a strong jawline, huge, broad shoulders, big biceps. He's a dude.
Okay, there's a couple things that we're hitting there. The first, I think, is that if, in a hypothetical situation, you're a person that is out at the bars and you're trolling, I guess, in the old definition of trolling, in that we're just sort of looking around for someone to bang out, and you're meeting a person and your only goal is sexual gratification, and you run into someone that is a man that you thought was a woman. That's unfortunate for you, but you've put yourself in a sort of weird bind there that I think ethically,
it's not even just
potentially,
you're
right?
out looking
Where
for somebody
like
to sleep
ideally, in the ideal world, you're meeting someone who has a personality that you really vibe with, and you've made a personal connection to, and now you want to express that physically. Is there a rough conversation that has to occur then? Probably.
No, there's no conversation.
We're sort of a weird situation that we've...
There's no conversation about it. So
because you're uncomfortable with who that person really is, or because
Let me respond.
I'm trying, but then...
Okay, so let me respond. So I'm not even just talking about you're out just looking for somebody to sleep with. I meet somebody at a bar. Maybe I vibe with them. I think they're a woman. I like them. We go on a couple dates, and then eventually it goes to more, right? And then I find out this person is actually a man. Now I'm upset because I've been fooled by this person, right, who I thought was a woman and isn't a woman, and I'm not into penises, right? So now I have a problem.
Sure.
And I'm in a bedroom with a person who's naked and has a penis, right? I don't want to see other men's penises. I don't care who it is. I don't want to see it, right? It's just, I just don't want to see it.
Right, but I think in that situation, the more important issue there is that person has presented...
They've lied.
A lie. Yeah, that person has lied to you, and I don't think that if you've made a real intimate mental connection with that person, I don't think the problem the problem is that they have lied about their penis, but I don't think the problem is that they have a penis. The problem is that they have lied, and there is a dishonesty.
Nope. The problem is that they have a penis,
but that they lied about it.
Well, that's a problem as well. But the problem for me immediately is, this person is a man, and I'm not into men. So goodbye.
Sure, yeah.
That's the immediate.
That person has lied to you about something that is very vital to your interaction with them. Absolutely.
Think about this. What if I had HIV and didn't tell somebody and then went and slept with them?
And they lied about it.
Yeah.
Then that problem is that they lied about it.
I just didn't tell you about it.
Yeah, by omission they have lied about some very important information. Right. That they should have.
But now
shared.
this person who thinks they're a woman and is presenting as a woman is convinced by society that they are actually a woman and just the same as women, because you want the language to change that includes them in the definition of women. You see the problem?
I see.
So they're not actually lying
because
the language has changed to include them as women. They're not lying anymore.
When you meet someone that is female presenting, you have the expectation that person doesn't have a penis.
Yes.
And then if that person should know, if they're attempting to be honest and making an actual connection with you, that they should know that is your expectation, because they live in the world and they know how the world works.
But you want to change the language to include that person in the definition of the woman. So you wanted me to tell you the problem with including those people in the language. This is the problem, because you're saying this person is at fault because they lied and didn't tell me that they're actually a man. But you don't think they're a man. You think they're a woman, and you want them to be included in the definition of a woman, right? So if they've just said, I'm a woman, and they're presenting as a woman, they haven't lied to me. There should be, theoretically, no problem there. But there is, because they're not a woman.
They have created an omission.
The lie
where they
is
should
the idea
have communicated
that they are a woman. That's the lie. And that's the lie you want to perpetrate.
They should. Okay, so first off, we do want to identify a harm. I think that is because we want to know what tastes bad in the butterfly analogy.
I'm gonna guess penis.
I don't know, but there are some people. Anyway, probably not to everybody. But
for me,
again,
that's what tastes bad to me.
We have to. I guess. More like a moral taste. Yeah, I don't know.
Back on topic.
Do you want to do a raise of hands again?
Back on topic.
We don't have to do that. Okay, so we're identifying the harm, right? And what is harmful about calling someone what they want to be called?
I just laid it out for you.
I don't think you did.
So if you can,
I think that I asked for harm, and the harm that you presented was a misanalogy. I think you connected two things that weren't. I think the harm was that they lied by omission, or that their presentation was dishonest, or that they didn't share something where there was an expectation that you clearly understood.
Their presentation isn't dishonest. The idea that they're a woman is dishonest.
What about the sports thing, though?
The sports thing is harder. Because there are some very obvious biological differences between someone that is male and someone that is female. And one of those things is athleticism. I mean, it's pretty hard to say that with all the information that we have, right, that a man competing against women isn't unfair. I think absolutely. And I think that identifying the difference between a biological male and the biological female and separating that from the gender conversation is beneficial now, because we have some grounds to actually create that distinction where when those two things are muddy, we have less.
Okay, so we've gotten two examples. You think maybe the first one, there's probably not a harm there as long as people are honest. And the second one, there probably is a harm. All right, so, if we are going through the method that's like, language should be based on something that maximizes utility, for example, which I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think it should be showing truth, right? I don't really see why we should make it to where it maximizes utility. But even then, there are countless other examples, like the second one on there, transgender children. That's a major harm that's happening, and this is a proven harm, and that's why so many countries in Europe are getting rid of this. Even the very socialist party, the very leftist party, the Labour Party in the UK is going back on this because they're realizing how harmful this is for children. If we keep going this direction, I mean, there's countless topics that we could go over. Even if that one topic, like the dating topic, you're like, I don't really see the harm there. There's just so many other topics, and even then, it's like we just want there to be truth. If you want to say you're a woman, like, you can say that all you want. You can say something that's false. We're not going to stop you from saying that. You have freedom of speech. We're just saying we shouldn't accept that as truth, and we don't have to call you a woman. Because, I mean, the fact of the matter is, you might not say this. You seem very reasonable, I think. You might not say this, but a lot of people say, I'm going to get very upset at you, and maybe even there should be repercussions for you if you say I'm not a woman. And that's where our concern comes from. Ultimately, if it was just the case that people, like men dressed in skirts and grew their hair out and it's like, I'm a woman, and just did their own thing, I don't think we'd really be talking about it. The reason we're talking about it is because there are so many implications that come from good catch. Woke liberal catches tent perfectly.
You just saved my life.
Where's the portable charger? Does anybody have?
See, this is why we need to keep you out of women's sports. That reaction time is insane.
Oh no. Okay, so first off, I don't want to say that I'm not ignoring the harm in the dating situation. Right, I do, but I just want to sort of reiterate this, that I do think the harm there is not necessarily the man presenting themselves as a woman. I think the harm is being dishonest with someone that is a potential partner. I think that is a harm.
To be clear, I'm not saying you are. I'm saying
that's
like,
bad.
If what you're saying is true, and like there really probably isn't a harm as long as people are being honest, then there's still lots of other things to consider. Like if I were to completely say you're absolutely right about that, Stephen, then I would say, what about all these other things?
Okay, so the other one is the harms to children, and a few things there. One of the things I think that is more important, or one of the ways that I think this conversation generally plays out, is that the harms that we're talking about are these sort of biological harms that are the potentials of, and I guess feel free to stop me here, the medical implications. Is that what we mean by harms, or are we talking about the mental implications?
Well, both, because I would even oppose social transitioning for children, because I don't think that that's something that's helpful, because over 90% of children who socially transition end up medically transitioning, whether it be while they're minors or when they become adults.
I gotta challenge that.
This is a statistic.
I
don't have
that's
the exact
true.
data. I don't have the
because
exact
I know
data
that the number of children that medically transition is insanely low. It's a very small. It's like less than 1%
or as children
of people that they've transitioned as adults. So
Yeah, I would imagine most of them probably did.
were like socially transitioned as children and then they transitioned as adults.
Yeah, I would say most of them.
Okay, yeah,
I don't
that's
have the
different.
exact source in front of me, but I'm citing a study that usually leftist cite because they're
Sure.
saying, oh, look how many people end up transitioning and they don't desist.
Okay, I just wanted to preempt that because the number of actual children that have medically transitioned is it's
it's too
so
many, I would
small.
say.
It's sure that's
It,
fair.
it might not be like
It's,
millions.
yeah, there's like 85 children I think that have gotten a surgical procedure, and there's I think it's like 13,000 that have taken hormone therapy. It's a very very small number
So
of,
it's
of
a
children that are actually taking the medicine. But then the social implication, like the mental issues, right? The mental and I don't know if we have the data to say that there have been medical implications to those transitions for the children, like the long-term effects. It's sort of like we don't have the numbers because they haven't occurred
It
yet.
doesn't matter how often it does or doesn't happen. We're saying it shouldn't happen at all.
Shouldn't happen at all. Sure, totally fair.
Can I make a few points? Because you said several things. So on the data on transitioning, it's definitely more than 85 who have gotten surgeries. Even the insurance data that we cite, Reuters has articles on this where they talk about the insurance data. That says way more than 85. But the problem with using the insurance data is we still can't determine how many kids are actually transitioning medically, because what if they're using a different type of insurance or they're not using insurance? So most people would say, if they're like assessing all the evidence and being honest about it, they would say, we don't really know how many are transitioning, but even if it is exactly 85 who have surgically transitioned, I would say that's too many.
Okay, so one is too many, right?
Yeah.
Is the position that we're taking. That's fine. I think that whether or not it is 85 or more than 85, I think that the number is small. I think that it's so small that we would call it negligible. And I also would say that if we're talking about specific medical harms, not
It's
if you
definitely
think one
not
is
negligible,
more
and it doesn't matter even if it is.
Not if
right?
you think one is too
The number
many.
of children that are raped is very small, but we would never call it negligible.
than. I don't think I would
matter.
equate those two things. But also,
I'm not equating them.
you are equating them. You
I'm
used
not
it as an
equating
analogy.
them. I'm just comparing two things as an analogy, right? So if something
equates the
bad
same
is
thing.
happening, one second, I'm not equating them, because equating them would be saying that child rape and child transition are the same thing. I'm not saying that. I am analogizing the two. You are saying that because this bad thing rarely happens, it doesn't matter. And if somebody said child rape is bad, but it rarely happens, so it doesn't matter, we wouldn't accept that.
Okay, I'm not saying it doesn't matter. That wasn't my point.
It's negligible.
No, I understand because I didn't get to finish that and fully flesh that out. The reason I brought up the low numbers is just to decrease the weight of that point. But the real point, I think, is that I don't believe we have the information on the long-term effects of those to say that there have been negative medical implications because the time frame hasn't occurred yet. Right, so we don't know for sure that there are negative impacts to someone medically transitioning. But the more important issue, I think, is the mental implications, and that is another conversation that I think plays out generally. That when we reject the idea that men can be women and women can be men, and this is where we connect the two things, the mental issues that occur for a young person that has socially transitioned is more likely to come when we reject their emotions and feelings. And so if there's a young person that says, I am a boy assigned, right, I'm male biologically, but I feel like a girl and I want to start dressing and acting like a girl, when there are grown-ups that go to that child and they say, the way that you feel is bad and the way that you feel is wrong and you shouldn't feel that way, I think that is more likely to create mental confusion and problems than if an adult would go to that child and say, the way that you feel is okay, the way that you feel should be accepted, the way that you feel is valid, and you're allowed to feel the way that you do. I think that the mental issues that occur from that are more likely to come from the rejection and the mindset when we say men can't be women.
Okay, so if we're talking about the studies on the medical effects, whether it be hormones, so-called gender-affirming hormones, or puberty blockers, or surgical transitions, there is a lot of research on this. It's probably not enough, but there's been many peer-reviewed studies, and recently you had the CAST review in the UK. The NHS had one of their most important doctors, along with a whole team, review all of the evidence that we had on children transitioning, and they couldn't find any evidence that it benefits them. CAST review, there's been systematic reviews out of the US, the UK, Sweden, Finland, many different countries, and they've consistently found this. All of these systematic reviews. That's why a lot of these countries are rolling back these laws, and they're saying kids can't transition anymore. The UK is doing that. The US has been doing that state by state. Sweden did that. They're closing down these clinics because of malpractice. And recently, well, it was like 2 years ago. There was a whistleblower at a clinic. I believe it was in Michigan, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a while since I read her article, but she was talking about all of these harms that were coming from giving these children these hormones. Like, for example, if you have a young girl who's going through puberty and you're giving her testosterone, it can do things like weaken her vaginal lining. So if she has sexual intercourse, she can actually bleed to death. The penis will break through her vaginal lining and she could bleed to death. And they had an example of one of these girls at this clinic who came in and she almost died. And this can happen to just about anybody if they engage in sexual intercourse while they're on testosterone. So there's many different issues. I mean, puberty blockers, it can affect your bone density. It can affect your brain development. Like, this stuff is it's just not good. And we have the evidence to show it's not good. We have plenty of evidence to show it's not good. Okay, so we have tons of different studies. And also, I mean, you don't necessarily in every case need a study on a particular thing to be able to come to the conclusion that it'll have adverse effects, right? Like, I've seen a couple of papers on, like, the brain development issue, for example. We don't have studies that are specifically examining the brain development over time, but we have people who are experts on this who say this is the type of effects that these chemicals would have on brain development.
So if we just quickly poll the people, what do we think this is? Like 40 people, maybe 30? I don't know. If we just quickly poll the people that are standing right here, not a single one of them, 100 out of 100, or 100% of them believe that a man can't be a woman, right? So it doesn't seem that the word, what you're trying to say is reflective, right? If you're trying to say that the majority of people, that when they say woman, men are included, it doesn't seem to match reality. If you polled the entire world, I guarantee you would have a result that men are not included.
Because men and women are different.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly, and men cannot be women.
But male and man are not the same thing either.
They are.
So, and as far as on a national level, it's usually about 66 to 70% who say there are two genders and kind of reject this. And that's from Pew Research, NBC, Gallup, PRRI. It's usually around the 66 to 70%.
And I do believe that is a leftover, a hangover from the antiquated definition of gender, which was at one point intrinsically linked to biological sex.
Yeah, it doesn't matter because you're making the argument that it has changed, but it is still the case that the majority of people think it hasn't changed. So if our language is reflective of what we mean when we say things, it is still the case that when the majority of people say the word woman, men are not included, right? So it hasn't changed. Colloquially, the majority of people still mean a woman like that one right there when they say woman. They don't mean him. They don't mean you. They don't mean me. And they don't mean Ben. They mean her.
They're talking about the thing that they're looking at.
They're talking about women.
So something that
adult
looks like a woman is a woman.
No, adult human females. People who fall into the sexual category capable of producing ova.
But what you're saying is that when we look at something and call it a woman, then it is a woman.
No, that's what you're saying.
But how would you? But that's what we're saying. That's what we're saying.
No, that's what you're saying. You're saying if it looks like a woman, it is a woman. I'm rejecting that notion. I am saying that a woman is an adult human female, and a female is a person who falls into the sexual category capable of producing ova. That also happens to be what the majority of people think. So the definition has not changed.
Okay.
But we have some people waiting, so I'll give you one last statement, and then we'll rotate in some new people.
Oh boy, I have to prepare a closing statement.
You don't have to. I just wanted to give you a chance to say whatever's on your chest.
I think that we have arrived at a fundamental difference in belief structures, and I think that we can agree to disagree that the definition of biological assignment at birth and gender, it seems like your belief of that is that they are the same thing, and that my belief of that is that gender is different now. and that man and women should be gender is gender, where male and female is biological sex. I think that is the difference that we have arrived.
I agree.
And I don't think we're going to get past that, and that's totally okay.
Okay.
I also think that another difference that I don't think much, actually, that it's as much of a difference that we have. I think that the big problem in not acknowledging, and the big problem with the rhetoric that men can't be women, is that when you have that rhetoric, you're rejecting the way that people feel.
Yes.
And that is inherently bad.
I reject people
And
the
I
way people
think-
feel all the time. If you feel like you want to kill people, I reject that. If you feel like you want to cheat on your spouse, I reject that. If you feel like you want to
thought this
punch
was my
Lance in the
closing
face,
statement.
I might not necessarily reject that. Just kidding. It's a joke for Lance. But you get what I'm saying? You can reject how
Yes.
people feel, and that's perfectly fine.
I think that when there are legitimate harms, like killing people and punching people, that we should reject. But I don't think that there is, either because there isn't enough evidence or that because the evidence is skewed, I don't think there is enough evidence to say that not calling someone or respecting the way that they feel is harmful when it is this topic specifically. And I think that's what we got.
Yeah. Thank you. Have a good one.
Thank you very
Just
much.
slide that mic back.